cloud.
Go to the cloud.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Like I said on the retreat, though, if people do want to share, but they don't want it to be recorded, we can just press pause on the recording.
Yeah.
So it's not recorded. So I know that sometimes that's if people want to ask questions and it's about someone and they think they might see this video, they don't want to ask it. So we want this to be about you guys. So we prefer just to press pause or not record if it meant people could be more open.
Yeah.
So I didn't put a topic on tonight because it was, we always have our community group on a Thursday, but then because we've had the retreat, we've just invited anyone that was on the retreat if they wanted to have a bit of a catch up, and anyone that's watched the recordings to tell us insights, ask questions, because sometimes your questions get answered, sometimes it can bring up more questions. So we just wanted it to be a really open space tonight. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, not at this point, no. Can you hear us all right? Cool.
Got a new posh mic.
New mic. I'm going to start singing and rapping just because I got a mic. You don't hear that. So yeah, we just thought, just open up. If there's anybody got any questions, anything they want to discuss, anything like... Yeah, John, hit us.
Yeah, it's something I wanted to share that I came across that I just found incredibly profound. I was reading, there's a gentleman, he's a I think he's a, I think his faith is maybe Franciscan. He's out in Santa Fe, I believe. But anyways, he does that kind of like this contemplative approach to Christianity, and he has like a daily reading. But I was reading something recently, and it was he was talking about a woman who was a Sikh, and I think her name is Valerie Kaur, K-A-U-R, but she practices something that philosophy she calls see no stranger. And by that, she means when she comes upon somebody who is unfamiliar to her, she sees them, and I'm just going to look, so I got this. What she acknowledges when she meets somebody new is, she says, "You are a part of me that I do not yet know." And I just find that incredibly powerful as I come across people and relate. And I think it just gets down to that essence of we're all connected to a oneness. We are all one. And it's like just an automatic empathy trigger, I think. Empathy and understanding as you have to acknowledge whether you see something in someone that is beautiful, or there might trigger something that for whatever reason you find distasteful. The beauty you're seeing is in yourself, and that which you are perhaps repulsed by is probably a part of our own shadow. And so I just found it incredibly moving. I thought I would share.
I love that. I don't know, for me, I'm probably quite overbearing for many people. I'm Northern, which kind of makes you friendly. If you're Southern, Kel, you know how this works. You're just not quite as friendly. Kelly's not friendly, no. But joking. But I remember for myself, the day I woke up, it was like that. It was like, I don't know, it was like everybody you got to meet was so special. It was a privilege to come across these souls in your line of sight, in your communications, and stumble across people in your lifetime. I remember we did some work with a lady who was really struggling, wasn't she? And I mean, we gave her a lot of time. She said to me,
well, I think it was the first time we'd met her. She came to our 2-day training in Southend, and it was kind of emotional and overwhelming for us. Yeah. So we just said, just go, and it was at somebody's house. So we said, just go upstairs, lay down on the bed, chill out. Like, maybe you can come tomorrow, but just, it's not about quantity with this. Yeah. Like, if something's moved you, just go and be
with
with yourself. And then halfway through the afternoon, I just went and sat next to her on the bed. I didn't have anything to say. I knew that she'd gone through a very difficult time in her life, and I sat and held her hand for a bit, and she cried. And it was when she then left that, she sent us that text message saying, "I can't believe you've spent that much time with a stranger." And I think you just said, "I haven't met a stranger in, at that point, 7 years or
6
something."
years, yeah. And it was like, as I wrote it, I realized it was true. It was something I hadn't really kind of acknowledged, like I really seen it, but it was like, no, I haven't met a stranger in 6 years. The last time I saw a stranger was 6 years ago. What a beautiful thing. It's like you meet a person, you meet a beauty, you meet a soul, you meet an interesting aspect of life.
Dave, was that something that was that an insight you had in that moment, or had you reflected on that before then?
It was reflected upon the moment I wrote it.
Yes.
The moment I wrote
Beautiful.
it just came out, and then I was like, fucking hell, I haven't met a stranger in 6 years. Yeah, and it was just like, wow. And it's interesting because I don't know, I love talking to
Everyone.
It's such a horrible word. Why do we call them strangers? As though somebody who we do not know is strange. Why are they strange? Why do we give that label strange to somebody we don't know? I really dislike the word personally. I think it's a horrible word.
It's like when I moved up here, we'd go out into town to buy something, and we'd be gone hours, and we'd walk away from someone, and I'd say, "Oh, how do you know them?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know them." And I'm like, "All right." And it was just that kind of,
I'm just overbearing.
well, you just talk to everyone, and I assumed you knew them well. And I do think probably I've spent more time in London, and like people do talk to you in London. It isn't unfriendly, but
yeah, they do.
I don't know. I think there's been times when you've said hello to people in London and they just sort of look at you like, "Oh, I don't know who you are." But up here,
did you know him?
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah, I love that, John. I love that. I think so many people are afraid of people. We're all afraid of each other, and it's such a ridiculous idea. It's that it is that word stranger. Like it's like you have all the kids follow it up nowadays with stranger danger. What have we become? What has our media brought us to the point of? You know, where everybody's terrified of one another, and there's such division, and it only exists in our mind. It's ridiculous. People don't trust one another, and it's horrible, really. I really hope we're going into a time where all that changes, and we can unite and drop that stranger aspect and just unite ourselves in life, in living, in being present on this earth now, all together. We're all present on this earth together right now, all of us. That must make us all family, surely.
I think also in what you said, John, it's pointing to the fact that if we're feeling the beauty of something, or we're feeling the repulsion of something, then it's looking inside. It's a reflection of our mind. And I think that's such a overlooked point, because we can look out and see someone and think what they're doing is, and we think that the feeling then of righteousness or the feeling of judgment or the feel is coming somehow from that person or that event. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact, no, you've got to look inside. You have to see this is telling you something about yourself. And I remember we spoke about it on one of our community groups. There's an amazing book called The Choice by Edith Adgar.
Leanne, you're nodding. Kelly's nodding.
Yeah, Leanne corrected me last time, I think. Yeah. But she, and you know of her, but we've listened to her audiobook, and she is a Holocaust survivor, and her book is, I recommend it to anyone. It's harrowing, but it's incredible. Like, she's an amazing writer and inspirational woman. And the thing that she realized is when she had a young boy come to her as she was a psychiatrist, and he was like racist.
He was like white power, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's saying all this awful stuff, and she asked God, like, how do I handle this? And what came to her was, where is the bigger within you? And I think she did then work with this kid, and it was just amazing because innately she's woken up to this. Like she knows the truth of how life comes into being. Like she's touched that space, and her whole book is about her realizing that reflection. Even when with some of the guards, like she realized if she treated them with humanity, she'd get more humanity back. It was just definitely an amazing book.
Yeah. No, it's nice that, John. These little reminders that people find for themselves to remind them to connect. You know, I remember listening to Ram Dass, and he said, I turn people into trees. I choose to turn people into trees. He said, because you can't judge a tree for how it grows. He said, you never get to know somebody's backstory. He said, but they've grown the way that they have because of where they've been and what they believed. He said, so I just practice turning people into trees. And you know, if somebody finds that useful, awesome. I think it's beautiful. Amanda.
You saying that about the trees again, that just reminded me of something. I think I mentioned something about that over the weekend, but yeah, sorry. No, because I don't want to say press pause or not really. Probably should, but only to protect Maisie. But
Yes, please press pause.
I'll press pause.
My daughter, but
And that, love. We're recording now.
But I can pause it. So.
Do you want to pause it? Pause it. You're on silent as well, love.
That helps. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I just want to say I've got my mum here with me in my telephone.
Hello.
And my mum's 94. She's amazing. She comes to all of these, and Dickin absolutely loves her. Anyway, I just want to say my mum gave me the absolute freedom when I was a child to be whatever I wanted to be. And I thanked her. I wrote this beautiful letter to her. It was her Christmas present a few years ago. And in that letter, I said, thanks, Mum, for giving me the freedom to find out who I am, to be myself, to go through my life's journey. And I am absolutely okay. And I think she's taught me that with Maisie. It's like, you know, it's like trying to give her the freedom and the safety at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's what we give our children. It's the best thing. I'm so appreciative to my mum.
That's beautiful, isn't it? And I think that's what you did for us, Mum. It was like, I mean, I know we put you through hell at times, you know, and there's been times in our family's history which has just been like all families. No family goes through life without facing its challenges. We've had our challenges, you know, and I love what you said there, Mum. I love what you said. It's like there isn't a blueprint to life. You know, we're born into this life and we forget all the connection as we start to go through life. We forget all the connection. We forget the play of life. It all becomes really serious, and sadly society is kind of we think life's all serious, and we're taught it at school. And I think, yeah, I like it's really, I'm not even an adult really. I'm not really a grown up, but I'm certainly not a father as far as I know. But I do know loads of people who really do mollycoddle their children. And I think just from an objective looking in point of view, you know, I can see that why they do that is because they themselves are terrified. And then they bring up children that are terrified. I remember when we were doing some tree work in Burnieside, just down the road, and there was a lot of kids in the garden. I said to you, and mums, this is a few years ago, and I said to you, Jen, your job is keep those kids from underneath my tree, please. Don't let them come underneath my tree because I'm dropping bits of wood out. And I heard you, after I switched my saw off, I heard Jen say, I heard the mother say, oh, she doesn't like dogs. She doesn't like dogs. She's like a 2-year-old kid, wasn't it? And then the mother went inside and Jenny said, there was a little dog there. And
It was
Jenny,
Rusty.
it wasn't, it was a gypsy.
Oh, yeah.
It was their dog. And Jenny said, come here. Come here. It's a little 2-year-old. Come and stroke Gypsy. And the little 2-year-old went up and was stroking Gypsy. But the mother's like, oh, no, she doesn't. She's afraid of dogs. She's afraid of dogs. And you can see, like, as we go through, like, it's so easy to pass on what I love about in that poem is it says, you can be like your child, but do not aspire to be like, for them to be like you, or something like that, words to that effect. Because life does not go backwards, it only goes forwards. They are people of tomorrow. Their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow. And life does not go backwards. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. Because life, the thoughts that we give them now are in a society that exists now. But tomorrow's society is going to be different because that's the way society's always worked. It evolves, and they are the future. I don't know. I can imagine it's bloody hard being a parent sometimes. And you think so many are like, am I getting it right?
We had the experience of taking our 11-year-old niece to Nepal for 6 weeks in Nepal and a week in Dubai.
Yeah.
And it was such a strange experience to think, right, we need to make the choices. And actually,
we need to keep her alive.
When Dave's parents, Margaret and John, came out to join us in Nepal, we're almost like, well, what do you think then? What do you think? We're not parents, we don't know. And Lewin actually loved it because we hadn't really taken into account she was an 11-year-old kid who didn't necessarily want to just sit at the dinner table and chat. And Margaret, you had like games to play with her, and we're like, oh yeah, she's 11.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
She doesn't want to talk about politics.
But then just like trying to think, oh God, has she eaten the right kind of food today? And has she had enough of this? And she wouldn't eat anything. She only wanted to eat like bread and just nothing with any spice. And we're thinking, oh, she's not having any vegetables. And but it was and I think sometimes, like I've said to my sister now, like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how because she's having to gauge now what they can and can't do at 13 and 15. What are you allowed to do? What are the boundaries? And we're always just like, if they ask me anything, I'm like, ask your mum. Whatever she says goes. Like, I don't know what the right thing is. But
and then Kath's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it is that it's incredible seeing how they come to their own conclusions and how wise they are.
Yeah.
And how easy it is to want to stop them having to feel things. You're like, oh God, I remember when I was that age, and you kind of almost want to prevent them learning. And I think it's been a privilege really to be auntie and not actually have to have the final say, but to kind of get to have that experience of almost wanting to protect them from having to feel horrible feelings, but then knowing that we learn from experience. And like you always say, you learn everything the hard way. If someone told you, like, don't touch that, it's hot, you'd have to quickly check. And I think one of my nieces is like that. She has to try it for herself, and that's the only way she learns. The younger one seems to be able to listen a bit more and be like, oh, okay, maybe I could learn from your experience a bit. But just seeing the different characters and recognizing they are their own people, and you can guide. But like Margaret said, they just need you to love them. And the more that you can love them unconditionally, they feel like they can tell you things. And I feel privileged the amount of stuff that I do have conversations with my nieces about. Like, there's no way I would have had.
Sometimes it's challenging, isn't it?
Well, there's no way I'd have had those kind of conversations with my auntie or my parents when I was that age. I was very private. And so the fact that they will come to me, and there has been times I've had to decide I need to disclose this to my sister because I don't know what to do with it. But it is that being able to acknowledge their wisdom and their internal guidance system, and that they have their life to live.
Yeah. And
you can kind of model a way of being in life, but you can't you can't make them in who you think they should be.
We've got a friend, a very close friend of ours, whose mother and father were very much about everything's got to be nice. So even when they were like really pissed off with each other, they were like underhandedly, what's the word, passive aggressive, like,
It's got to be nice. It's got to be nice.
Oh, it's got to be nice. This is what I've heard anyway. And this friend of ours is like, so on edge all the time. It's like he was never allowed to feel the sadness, never allowed to feel the grief, never allowed to feel the pain. Because one thing that I seem to notice when I look back, again, being reflective, I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately, like there has been times in my life where I've entered into some seriously difficult pain, a real worry, a real trauma, a real anxiety about something or somebody or whatever it be. And perhaps that anxiety stayed with me for months. You know, like a bit of a background, just presence and anxiety. But there does come a point where it alleviates. It always has. There's always become a point where that worry has become, it's almost like I could say I've passed it like a kidney stone, almost. It's like the pain of this excruciating pain. And then at some point, it's like it leaves. And I can think about that subject and it has no effect on me whatsoever. Almost like a shedding of a layer of ego. That suffering was actually a really beautiful, natural process. It was the shedding of a piece of ego that I was unaware of until it raised its ugly head and was like, right, now, Dave, now you're ready to look at this. Now you're ready to face it. Now you're ready to feel it. This is how you live your life. This is one of the beliefs you carry around with you. And I've done it since I was a child. I remember when I heard about Grandma and Granddad being cremated, the worry and anxiety, 6 months of pain, the idea of my grandma and granddad being burnt alive. And then one day I'd processed that enough, or I'd gone through enough of that, and it just alleviated and it went. I never worried about cremation again. Then, like, as I got into my younger age, again, it was like global warming, planetary destruction. It was like, wow, I underwent that for months. And throughout my life, I felt these things kind of come up, these worries, these anxieties, but we've always run away from pain. We're so desperate to stay away from it because we don't like it and it's not comfortable. But each time we actually enter into one of these spaces, it is ultimately showing us something about our ego. It's waking us up to an aspect within ego that this is how you see the world, by the way, this is how you see the world. And that individual will suffer that until it passes. And I don't know, sometimes I can have anxiety for a morning. Sometimes I've had anxieties for a couple of years. But I think we're so tied into time and this lifetime, this particular lifetime, and we're so tied into this mortal existence. And it's like, we know nothing about beyond this. We know nothing about anything beyond this form that we are. We get glimpses of it. We get glimpses of the beyond, and sometimes we get these glimpses of the beyond. It's like it awakens somebody. It can really awaken somebody and change somebody's life, but you're only getting a glimpse of the beyond. You're not seeing the whole picture. So it's like nature knows what it's doing. Nature knows what it's doing, and we are nature. And it's like it can figure it out. It always has. It can figure itself out. And I think that I have more faith in that now than anything else. I have more faith in everybody on earth leading their own lives, learning their own lessons. They might not learn them in this lifetime. Who knows? But throughout time we've learned, we've evolved, we've changed. I mean, personally, I look at this world now and I think it's one of it's the safest it's ever been. Right now, we're living in a time where the world is the safest it's ever been. Everywhere's on camera. It's like people are generally, there's no clan fighting anymore like there was in the UK a couple hundred years ago. You know, there's no clan fighting, there's no tribal fighting in most countries anymore. It's settled. It's you know, and we're actually living in a really safe time. We're actually living in a really beautiful time. But I feel like people are more afraid now than ever. It doesn't like the psyche doesn't tally up with the reality. That's how lost we've become. That's just the way I see things. I mean, there'll be people who've had terrible things to happen to them and they're like, no, it's not safe. And I get that. But I think en masse, like given the population of the planet, we're actually living in a really kind of great time.
We were saying, we had this conversation a little while ago that we remember as kids being allowed out to play and going and building dens, going off for the day. You didn't have mobile phones. And then we said it was when Jamie Bolger was taken by those two kids, like it changed.
Early 90s, was it?
It almost changed the mentality, I think, of being a parent in that time, was suddenly children weren't allowed to go out and play anymore. And so it's definitely changed, but it is an interesting thing. I remember speaking to my uncle who worked for Essex Police for a long time, and he just said it is safer than you think. He said, and normally this whole idea of stranger danger, he said it's normally, you know, if things have happened, it's been someone that's known.
Yeah, it's not a stranger.
And it's like that's the person you're not afraid of. And it's, yeah, I just think the nice thing is the reason we got to go to Nepal was because of a lady called Mahima. Many of you know who Mahima is, and she had messaged after the earthquakes in 2015, and she'd kind of looked into the principles a little bit before, and had picked up Jamie Smart's book in an airport and read a line that said 100% of experience comes from thought in the moment. And she's like, oh, that's interesting, maybe I'll buy it later. And then within the first earthquake, she kind of had a wake up,
which was a year later, wasn't it, after reading that book?
She's not quite sure. It's different every time she tells, but it's within a year of reading that line in the book. And she said she suddenly just fell into a space of peace. And she said it was like she realized she had psychological safety. And she said physically she knew she wasn't safe, but spiritually, psychologically, she just knew she was safe. She could not be hurt. And she said, I didn't become stupid. I came responsive, and I was able to help people in a much greater way. And she said, you'd think in the middle of an earthquake would be the last place you start to feel peace or realize psychological and spiritual safety. But she said it was like the most profound moment for her. And then she said a couple of weeks later, she was getting seriously stressed out with a contract at work and feeling like she was under pressure and feeling like, and she said that feeling of psychological safety had kind of fallen away, and something seemingly trivial was really getting at her. And I think you can see like that feeling being presented to her in the midst of that. It isn't from the outside that feeling of security and safety comes. And I think whenever we've experienced it, it's not something we question, we know it's true. And I think that's it's beyond a thought, it's beyond a concept, it's just a knowing. And I think that's the true safety. And I think that's what Sid was trying to point people to, like you're all right. And then when you know that for yourself, then you know it in other people. But it doesn't always mean in this world of form what we want it to mean. Things aren't always going to turn out how we want them to. People are going to suffer mentally with things, but it's like you see the essence and the heart of someone rather than the behavior or the struggle, and you know that's what's whole. And I think you can kind of keep seeing it for people when maybe they don't see it themselves. And I think that's the thing that definitely woke me up with Roger. Like, he just knew I was fine. I'd lost sight of it, but he knew it. And having someone so certain of you're fine, you're okay, was the thing that I think woke it up in me, like, oh, this person's not worried about me. They know everything about me and all these awful things that I thought made me broken, and they're not concerned. And I think that's what the principles offer, is like that certainty and trust in life, and trust in people. And like, there's been times I've known, like when, like we were saying in South Africa, you trusted Alex in that moment. I think you told the story on the retreat. I can't remember. But then other times in South Africa, when we've come across people, we've known to give them a wide berth, like that. And I think Linda Pettit spoke so beautifully, like intuition, like that sense that we have. I don't know, I think we've got so caught up in thinking someone else knows, we've forgotten that part of us that does know how to navigate life. Know where, you know, it's, if we get a sense of something, and I think it's that, your sister said she used to be scared of everything, and she was always kind of sensing that someone was chasing her, or, and then when she woke up to this, she realized she'd been doing it to herself.
Yeah, driving herself mad.
But she's not now stupid. She doesn't take unnecessary risks.
See, but
or
that
anything.
was something that came from our family, because mum got attacked down the lane. Somebody tried to drag her into a field, and she fought him, and like, it was that single act of somebody trying to have the way with my mum, that really shaped our family. Was it before I was born? Yeah, before I was born. Yeah. Are you unmuting yourself? You can see the concentration. You done it? Can hear the birds.
Yes, done it.
Well done, Mum.
It did have a big effect on. It did have a big effect on the family.
Yeah.
Have I done it?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It did. It had an effect for years on our family.
Yeah, it did. And it was.
In fact, it was one of the reasons you were the way that you were, because everybody had to protect everybody. We were like the mafia. We protected this family like you wouldn't believe, simply because of that one act.
Yeah. It made Lisa kind of, and these are all traits within our family that were so invisible. It was so invisible. I remember I think it was about 18 months ago, Mum, 2 years ago, you said you went to prison. For those that don't know me, I went to prison when I was younger for violence. You went to prison because I was attacked.
Yeah.
And I'd never put the two and two together. And the moment I saw, it was like, you're absolutely right. And my sister was so terrified of going for runs and stuff, because we carried around this kind of weight of memory around with us in our minds, in our psyche, the energy of that moment, we carried it with us. And it's died.
Yeah.
That energy has now died within our family. It had its
A long
time.
time ago. It's a long time ago.
I mean, but this was a long time ago. I was, it must have been, what year was it happened?
20 years ago. You were 21.
No, what year was it you got attacked, Mum?
Me? Oh, it was 1978.
1978, year before I was born. I went to prison in 2001, so it was 20 years later. And Lisa was phoning me up 2011, 2012, saying, come and get me. There's a car there. I don't want to run past it. They're going to get me. Oh, she always thought she was going to be dragged into a field and murdered. But you see, it's like my family carried this unknown, unseen burden. And it was because my dad used to say, you protect your family at all costs. And when my sister got attacked, she pointed out who it was, and I roughed them up a bit. And it was the wrong person. My sister was wrong. But these kind of unknown kind of traits that we carry around as families, and it was only when I came across the principles and I had my insight of whatever the hell that was, it cleared everything. It just cleared it. And I think this is where we're always trying to guide people to, because we're not trying to guide people to any form of ideas of how to be. People go, oh, what does the principles think about this? What does the principles say about that? What's the principles take on this situation? Or what's the principles take on that situation or that person? That's the wrong question. Those are all wrong questions, because the principles don't care about any of that stuff. The principles are absolutely, they're a description. They're just a metaphor anyway. First and foremost, they're just a metaphor. You know, mind, consciousness, thought, they're just words. But what they're pointing to is a singular force that has the traits of what we call mind, what we call consciousness, what we call thought. And if at any point, everybody is made of that force, everybody is that force, everybody's that singular force, and it's pure love. Pure love. That's another trait of it. It's just pure love. And the only thing that anybody ever does walking through their lifetime is they lose knowledge of that fact. And we start to substitute this kind of pure love, intelligent, informative capacity. We start to substitute it for a character. You know, a personality which in itself is ever changing, and the personality within myself changed, and my sister changed, and also within the wider family, the family's personality changed. And it was just through waking up and realizing that reality ultimately is illusory. It's illusory. It's like John just said right at the beginning of this, you know, how you meet somebody determines how they appear, how they show up to you, how you meet them. Whatever's going on for you, you know, if you're meeting a stranger, you're actually meeting the character you create within your mind. If you meet a friend, it's the character you've created within your mind. If you're meeting a foe, it's a character you've created within your mind. That point, it's like that applies to every single thing we ever encounter, because the only thing we ever encounter is our mind. It's the only thing we ever encounter. The only thing we ever encounter is something we give the term mind to. This force, it's the only thing we ever encounter. It's a dream state. It's a dream state of reality. It's impossibly capable, beyond anything that I can possibly comprehend. And if we don't know that, then we tend to meet more strangers. If we don't know that, we tend to live a life more fearful, more suffering. That one realization, that one experience of going beyond this reality, going beyond this physical world into I don't know. I can't talk about that stuff. But it came through me. I didn't step into it. It came through me. It was always there. It was already there. It just emerged. It wasn't something I walked into. It wasn't something from the external. It was already who I was. I can't see it because I live in the world of the senses. And I live in the world of the capacity of duality to dream and to experience and to create reality. That's our gift. I remember Terry Rubenstein once saying she was creating a website. She said what the principles are pointing to is the what's it called? Back end of the website. You know, we go on the internet and we look at all these websites. We see the front end of all the websites. That's like life, but there is a back end. There's a back end to life, and it's not something that we're kind of privy to all the time. But once you've seen it, once you've seen that there's a back end, you see how the website's built. It changes everything. But nothing needs to change either. And I think the most important thing I could ever say to somebody is, it doesn't matter whether you've seen it or not. It doesn't matter. It's not something to go in search of because you can't find it. Because the thing that we go in search of in that respect is something that we don't even know what we're going in search of. We can't know what we're looking for because we don't know until we know. And then you know, and then you realize, oh, I've always known that. See you, mate. Too late, he's gone. And I think knowing that mystery exists and that everything is made of that mystery, it like takes the life, this life, and it just puts the whole thing into perspective. And this is why we keep saying to people, you cannot get life wrong. Amanda, Annette, you can't get it wrong. And neither can that individual. Neither can that individual. We can do things over and over and over and over again until we learn our lessons. Life will bring you the same old shit. People call it karma. Until we start to see our ego around that subject, it will repeat itself because that's all there is. It's all there is for us at that point. Until at some point we step within our being and see it for what it was. Clears through. It's like addiction. That's what addicts do. They will repeat the same old shit time and time again until they step within their being. That's all 12th step was ever built on spiritual realization. Step 11, have a spiritually enlightening moment. I love that. Step 11, have a spiritual, now you've got to have a spiritual enlightening moment. But all the other steps are building up to, they're building up to that. Forgiveness, kindness, love, acceptance, humility, all those things are helping to break down that individual's ego. And humility, love, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, they're all traits of love. It's helping an individual find love. And when an individual finds enlightenment, they find pure love. And pure love will take an addict, any addict that finds pure love, like Bill W. did. He found pure love, cleared it in a moment, which is why he created the 12 steps, because he realized that if somebody can realize pure love, when I say pure love, it sounds like it's a thing, pure, undescribable love. The love that will break your being in a good way. They will not be an addict from then on. That's what Bill W realized, and that's what the 12 steps were built around. That's what Sid Banks realized. That's what Jesus realized. That's what all the prophets realized. They realized pure love. That's why they called it God. God is love. That stuff is the creative force of all things. Everything's made of a substance called love. Even all our problems. It's all that love in disguise, all love in taking different forms. No matter what the religion, it's love taking different forms. No matter what the belief, it's love taking different forms. No matter what the action, it's love taking different forms. Everything is made of love. Even fear is made of love. Because there's nothing but love, because there's nothing but God. They're just words. And like we said on the retreat, it favors each individual life, every single life on earth and the universe. It favors it, and it favors the whole as well. Its bias is compassionate, thriving, but it gives every single thing the capacity to think of in its own accord. Everybody's free to think whatever they wish and to believe whatever they wish. They're free to do so. But it's all a game. It's all a temporary manifestation. All manifestations are temporary. But we're always afraid that one of them's going to win out and last forever. It's quite interesting, like when John said about the strangers or the friends. Some little bastards have been eating my chili plants. Absolutely hammered my chili plants. And I picked up my little lemon tree today, which isn't doing so well. And I found two little slugs about that big, snuggled up right alongside each other with these tiny little baby slugs on top of them. A little family. Oh, I felt terrible. It was like, I got them, I took them all out together, and I popped them underneath this little shrub, and I made sure that they stayed together. I don't want them eating my chilies. They can go outside.
On your lemon tree.
They were under my lemon tree. They've been eating my chilies though.
Oh.
Hammered them. Because I was looking at these thinking, they're inside. What the hell is eating my chilies inside? And it was two slugs snuggled up like a little couple with these little baby slugs on top of them. And I think that was another thing that really opened up for me, was not only had I stopped meeting strangers in human form, I stopped meeting strangers in animal form. It was like to start to see that all beings are the same thing. They're all experiential events. I'm an experiential event. Each one of those slugs has its own little reality, has its own little experience of life that looks entirely like that's all there is. Oh, it's just this. Looks just like that to each one. To each slug, each slug will see a different world. It's its own separate reality. And it was like, I think that was one of the nice things. Like, I always love nature, but to be able to kind of not see a stranger in different species as well was like, I don't know, I just think I made my life more exciting. it made my life more enjoyable.
There's way more things for you to talk to as well.
Yeah, I talk to everything. See,
We're on the bike and I'll be like, what are you saying? So I was just saying hello to the little horse there. What did you say? I was just saying hi to the jackdaw.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm overbearing. Catherine, you got your hand up, love.
It just tickled me what you've just been saying about the slug, because you know last year I was telling you that we're having a complete revamp this year. We're doing all the garden. It's a Japanese garden and it's coming along lovely. It's coming on really nice, and we've spent a fortune on plants and everything. So I keep putting all these different plants in. And I think, oh, that'll go nice there and that'll go nice. And we've put a new pond in and we think that'll go nice at the side of the pond. But we've got 4 chickens that are free range that roam around the garden. And we've got a rabbit called Biggles. So I keep buying all these lovely bushes. And then we were sat there yesterday and lovely sunshine. And above everything else, we could see this bush moving. And I said to you, didn't I? Looks like Biggles is part of his new menu, because we've decided that our chickens and Biggles, they've got such a varied menu these days because we've got all these new plants. So I'll buy plants, and I've realised that I can't buy ferns because the chickens have eaten them. I can't buy hebes because Biggles eats them. So rather than get annoyed that they're eating all these new plants, which I would have done before, now I'm thinking, well, I realised that I can't buy them because Biggles will eat it, and I can't buy these because chickens will eat them. So our garden's now being created on what the chickens and Biggles won't eat. And I'm not getting annoyed about it. You know, we're actually laughing about it, aren't we? When
we're broke.
Yeah. And regarding, because it's a Japanese garden, you don't get daffodils in a Japanese garden. So all these lovely daffodils that have been there for years, which I've put in myself, and they look lovely, but they're just not going to look right now. So I didn't want to, normally my old self, I'd have dug them up and thought, oh, pot them, thrown them off at fence into wood, thinking, oh, well, they'll just take root there. But I didn't want to kill these daffodils, because what have they done to me? I want these daffodils to live. So I've spent 2 days digging daffodils up. I know that if you cut them before the greens wilted, that they're not going to flower again the next year, are they? So I've dug them all up. I've put them all in a box so that they'll green or rot away, so that I can replant them in the front garden for next year, because I don't want to kill them.
Good.
So I'm sort of like everything all being one. I want my daffodils to live, and we'll get the pleasure of them next year. But in the meantime, the garden's absolutely lovely, but it's getting eaten. And I don't mind. I honestly don't mind. I'll just buy things. I keep buying things thinking, oh, well, I'll try this, see if anybody eats this. And if they don't eat this, I'll buy 2. I'll go and buy another one. One thing, they don't like azaleas, and azaleas are doing really, really nice. So I'll be going and buying some more of them.
Go and get some croutons and put little croutons and some black olives, and just make it a salad bar for.
Well, we've decided they've got a banquet. It's an all-day banquet. They keep nibbling on different plants, so they're just at an all-day banquet all day. They're very happy.
Why Biggles? Does he fly?
Well, we inherited him, and he were called Biggles when we got him.
Right.
But the chickens are all named as well. We've even got Dusty Springfield. She's a chicken with a white head, Polish. But I thought I'd just share that with you. They're in competition with your slugs.
Yeah, I hope my slugs are all right. Yeah. We had a lass come and work with us, didn't we? And she was from New Zealand. She came and She came and did some work with us. And she's like, got a bloody cockroach. I've had to call it Dive. Can't bloody kill it now. She's just like, couldn't kill the cockroach, could she? So Dive today, scuttling through into the kitchen. So Dive today, the bedroom. She couldn't kill it. I like that.
Kelly, did you have your hand up? Or I imagined that. I imagined it. You've got your stripy top on again.
It's
I
a
like this
different stripy one.
Yeah. It's like the evil Where's Wally? You know, the evil one.
Oh, thanks. I kept over the weekend during the retreat, and when John spoke earlier, I keep thinking of that Please Call Me by My True Names poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. Have you heard that poem?
Can you recite it?
I mean, I can. It's long. All right, I'll have to get it. Just one sec. It's on my phone somewhere.
Well, tell you what, should we have a 10-minute break and then come back and you read that?
Yeah.
Let's have a 10-minute break. Let's go and get a cup of tea and then we can
Right.
all enjoy Kelly's reading. Kelly's dulcet tones.
That will be a big thing for me, everyone. Reading in front of people has not been my thing.
Oh, I love. See you.
See you in a sec.
Cal.
1 minute. It's called Please Call Me by My True Names. Do not say that I depart tomorrow. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and the death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosizing on the surface of the river. I am the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear pond. I am also the grass snake who approaches in silence, feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. I am the arms merchant selling the deadly weapons to Uganda. I'm a 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes the flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills our 4 oceans. Please call me by my true name, so I can hear all my cries and my laughs at once, so I can see that my joy and my pain are one. Please call me by my true name so I can wake up, and so that the door of my heart can be left open, and the door of compassion. I just think it's sort of quite nice in, you know, that idea of the stranger and the people that we don't necessarily feel that behave in the correct way, that we are at some point all of those different people.
And what was that called?
It's called Please Call Me by My True Names.
Well, I put that up on the Facebook group.
I love that, Cal.
Yeah, it's just I just kept thinking about it all weekend, you know, and then when John said what he said, it come to mind again, and it just keeps coming to mind. So I thought I'd just tell you lot it.
You know, one of the things that Jesus would say, and many other people have since said, or perhaps come across it in their own way, is the most true state of being is I am. It's a statement which just simply says I am. Really simple, so simple. I am is the truest state of all being. because I am is without judgment. It's just obvious. And what I like when it says, please call me by my true name, is it says I am at every single one of those things. I am the pirate, I am the girl, I am the whatever it was like I am ran right through that. I am. And in that I am, sorry, so
I was going to say something that Jenny said as well about when she was in the prison, she was in waiting for someone, a free principles speaker to start speaking, and I think Jenny was there. She looked over and he was crying and said that, you know, that everybody was innocent.
That was Sydney Banks.
What was that? Sydney Banks, who was in tears in the prison.
Yeah, so I heard the story from Keith, but Keith was there and he was giving a talk to the whole prison. They'd had to do it on the wing because there wasn't anywhere else big enough to house the amount of people that wanted to listen. And they had like heads of other prisons, they had police officers, they said all these people stood there. And I don't think Sid could believe that that's how we treat people, because he saw the suffering in the people that were being, and he was talking about everyone, not just the people. Here's Rusty. He apparently just stood on the stage and waved his hand across to everyone and just said, "You are all innocent." He's like a sea of orange suits, and then all the officials, but it was for everyone. And it's not that they're innocent in their actions, but in who they are.
In the kind of energy and spirit, not necessarily behaviour.
Well, I think that poem that you just read sums it up. The I am is, everybody is I am. Everybody is I. We all refer to ourselves as I. Everybody is I. Okay, it's a universal thing. In that singleness, in that poem that you wrote, it's a completely non-dualistic poem. I am everybody. I am everything. I am. I am everybody. I am everything. I am. I am the gem in the middle of the stone. I am the person. I am the whatever. I'm the caterpillar in the heart of the flower. I am. That poetry is a non-dualistic poem. It's a poem of singularity. It's a poem of unity. I'd say unity because to unite is to create, is to bring at least two things together. It's not bringing anything together. To bring something together is duality in itself. It's the non-separating of it. And the only place where the separation actually takes place of that state of being, which that poem is ultimately describing, and it's saying, "Call me by my true name." We keep looking at all the different aspects of it, and we go, "Oh, a gem. Oh, that's different to a flower, which is different to a pirate, which is different to the caterpillar." But that poem is clearly stating, no, everything is made of the same thing. You just don't see it. You see difference. You see separation. You see things. You see objects. You see distance. You see over here and over there, up there and down here. Time. All these are illusions. And these illusions are born of thought. These illusions are thoughts. It's something that is so obvious when it's realized, but until it's realized, it just makes no sense. But that's reality. Reality makes no sense to the intellect. That's why we keep saying about the principles. The principles are not a therapy, they're not a technique, they're nothing like that. The principles don't care. The principles are another metaphor for I am. Mind, I am. Consciousness is I am. Thought is I am in that poem. Thought is all things. Consciousness is all things. Mind is all things. They are it's the underpinning nature of all things. It doesn't, it's form and it's formless. It's something and it's nothing. It's time and it's timeless. It's born, but it's not born. It's born into the physical, but it was never born. It doesn't exist in the realms of what the intellect can cope with. To it, there is no over here and over there. There's no up and there's no down, and there's no such thing as time. There's all time. It's just all things all at once. But in our earthbound existence, unless we happen to step into our being and realize the timeless dimension that we truly are, that which you know is all things, because you are it. We live this life of existence, stories, which is what all life is a story. All life is a story. We tell each other stories. We tell each other the stories of our lives. My mum just did it before. But all of it is a story. It's a story from birth till death. The new stories are born. The whole game of existence is a story, which is why people say it's a game, the game of life. It's nothing more than thought. It's all thought. It's all a dream. The mystics said the dream of life. It's all a dream. We're all dreaming different realities. We're all the same force, animated in different ways, dreaming separation and playing the game of duality and separation so it can interact with itself. It's consciousness experiencing it. We are consciousness experiencing itself. We're mind experiencing itself with the power of thought experiencing itself. We are I am experiencing itself all the time, always have been, always will be. It's a big dynamic, inexplicably phenomenal thing that I don't even know where to start with it. It's too massive. But it's not. It doesn't exist like that. But when it touches you, when you realign yourself with it, however you want to talk about it, and it's not something you can think your way to, you can't think your way to it. The intellect, the only way that you can possibly even start to get a sense of it is if you're taking notes about any of this stuff at any time. Don't, because you will not find it in taking notes. When we worked in Glen Hazel in South Africa with some Orthodox Jewish ladies, there was one lady there. I adore her. She's one of my favorite.
Comes to community group sometimes.
She's one of my favorite human beings on this planet. She was such a pain in my ass. Such a pain in my ass. The first time I met her, she was a solicitor, a lawyer, and she grilled us. And I was looking at her.
She only had 15 minutes.
Yeah, because it was Shabbos, and she only had 15 minutes. 2 hours later, I'm like, the sun's gone down. I think you better go home. And she was grilling us. But in that time, I fell in love with her. I'm like, no, I really do want, you need to come on our course. And she made notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. And
she could do shorthand, so she was just taking down everything.
Everything was shorthand. And I said to her, I said, look, please don't do that. Please just be here. No, it's what I do. You won't find it in that, I promise. It's not in those words. It's not on that piece of paper. It's not in here. You're feeding this. It's not that. This isn't a learning like anything we've ever learned before. You must be prepared to let go of that and just relax. The only place you'll find it in is the moment you let go. The moment you are ready to let go of your story, it will shine out through you. And you will enter into that world, that dimension. You'll enter into the kingdom as it's been called in the past. Enter into the kingdom. And when you find this kingdom, you'll realize the most divine, inexplicable love. This most, I've heard it described recently as ruthless. It is fucking ruthless. It will take your character and it will wring you out. And it will change your life in a moment. And you will not have a say about it. Because you suddenly realized what you are. And you were never what you thought you were. And then you go back to playing the game of life again. But now you go back to life playing it with this knowing that you are not what you think you are. But you can be if you want to be. And you will be. And you will be a human being, but with a different knowledge. With a true knowledge where you will go, I know that none of this that I'm seeing now, it looks, or should I say, it looks so convincingly real, it feels so convincingly real, but I know that the only thing that I've ever found in my life that was true and real and an absolute fact, the only thing I can ever say was an absolute fact is whatever I am. Whatever I am. That.
I was going to say that the cool thing about that lady is, despite all of her note taking and all of that stuff, she's still.
That was when she stopped. She started to kind of open up, didn't she?
Well, she still got really. She was like, I'm changing, and I don't know why, and I can't figure it out, but I'm changing.
Yeah. And
we're like, cool, because it's a 6-month program, so we had 3 days, and then monthly webinars with different speakers, and then one-to-ones bi-weekly, I think. Yeah. And you just gradually over that time, you could just see something loosening its grip on her. And then the second 3 days that we did 6 months later, she was like a different person to be around. And then shortly after that, we got to do some calls with her 10 or 11-year-old daughter. And she just sat there, pen and paper in hand, taking notes. And we're like, you're just like your mother.
You're your mother's daughter, right? Love them. But that was the beautiful thing. It was when she kind of stopped. When
I think she gave up.
Stopped trying to, you get to the point where you're like, this doesn't fucking work. Because you're trying to make something work that's already working. It's not that it doesn't work. It's even if you're at the most despondent point, this isn't working, that's it working. That's you undergoing the experience of this isn't working. It's all the same thing. And it is that moment when you kind of just go, fuck this shit, excuse my language.
Probably going, just apologize.
I'm out of here. It's like quite often people find it when they're ready to kill themselves. That's what happened to me. I was ready to kill myself and it emerged. You're not going anywhere, Dave. Look at this. It's like, I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't get to kill myself and other people do. I don't know. I don't know why it was ready for me or I was ready for it. So you say that I've created a duality as though we're two different things. That's language. This is what language does. But ultimately, it sounds really callous, and it sounds like I'm being uncaring, because I'm not being uncaring. Because I know I care more about people now than I ever have in my life, and care more about nature and trees and slugs. But we just take it so frigging seriously, all of it. We take all our feelings, all our thoughts, all our experiences so seriously because we think they're real.
It's been really interesting recently because I have a friend who is going through some relationship trouble, and it's almost she keeps saying, well, I know that the easiest thing to do is this, but this is what I want to do. And you can see how we get so heady about things, but it's been really nice. I feel like it's probably, if this had happened before my understanding, I would have had so much good advice and I would have told them what to do to avoid feeling pain. But it's been really interesting just to be able to listen and know that people have a life to live. And that I don't know what's best for them. And I don't know if sometimes making the decision that makes things easy is right for them in that moment. And I think you just recognize this life stuff so much bigger than the intellect. It's so much bigger than our character and our good ideas, and that trust and faith in life unfolding is for all life, for all people. And at one point my friend just said, "You're not going to give me the answer, are you?" And I was like, "No." She said, "But you have got an opinion, haven't you?" I was like, "Yeah." She said, "But you're not going to tell me, are you?" And I said, "No." Like, it's not. But it's so cool because I think I can see the part of my character almost like wanting to try and prevent pain. Like, this will be the easiest thing. But I don't know if that's what life's about. Avoiding hard times, or it's just been such an interesting point. But knowing that I don't really know what we are. Like, that space that I feel like I've touched on, like Dave said, we don't really know what that is. So then it'd be quite arrogant to think I knew how someone's life should be and how it should go. And like when you said, how did you don't know why you got to kind of wake up before you killed yourself, and other people don't get that wake up. It's almost like I don't know. I know that this life isn't just it.
No.
That there's so much more. Like, I think Dickens said, if you put together all the form of all the planets and all the universes, it's like supposedly 4% of what really there is. So then there's like this 96%.
But really, it's actually infinite.
Yeah, but just in terms of trying to get your head around it a bit, of like what we think we know, and the form is so small, and that formless expanse that the form emerges from is so vast. I think ideas of life and death and what should happen and what shouldn't happen start to vanish, because you see we're so limited with our reality, and we're so limited with our perspective. And I think even when we've done healing and things now, I'm always like, this being's highest good, whatever that means, that's what I'm sending love and healing towards. And I think I used to have an agenda with my healing, like quite a personal agenda, whereas now I'm like, I get that there's so much unknown, and gaining respect for that. And I think I thought the principles was about gaining knowledge and knowing something and finding safety in knowledge, but it's actually a safety in the unknown, and the place from which everything emerges, the I am space before anything is. And it's knowing that we are that, and then what plays out isn't it's not that it isn't important, because it's our life. And I think that's the nice thing I've heard it described recently, like, well, it's real to you, so it's not like just because it's
real, it's reality.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's why when we heard that doctor who does the near-death experiences stuff,
Dr. Bruce Grayson,
and he was saying how, we take the Aristotle view of either something's true or false, right or wrong.
In the West, that's our default.
But how in the East they recognize that something could be true or it could be false. It can be true and false, or it could be neither.
Or it can be both.
I said that.
What did you say?
Yeah, it's like the fourfold view.
True. It can be true. It can be false.
It can be true and false, or it can be neither.
Yeah, it can be neither true nor false. Yeah, and apparently that lines up more in alignment with quantum, what they've discovered about the quantum world, the quantum theory. That the Eastern ideologies are more in alignment with what's showing up in our sciences now, rather than the black and white that we tend to live out of. Is it black or is it white? Right, you need to prove it's either black or you need to prove it's white. There's no shades of grey in there.
Has anyone else got questions or comments or things they would like to ask or say?
But we all know it exists. Deep, deep down in our hearts. That's why we're all here. That's why we're all here. It's why we got a psychologist, got a psychiatrist. It's why we go to church, synagogue, mosque, whatever. That's why we go for walks. That's why we look for people to love. That's why we do art. That's why we do all the things we enjoy. Because deep down within our being, we know there's more. And we're searching for it. But we use the wrong tool to dig. We're using a hammer to dig. That was one of the things I said to our friend in South Africa. You've got one hammer, you've got one tool in your toolbox, love, and you're using it for everything. Your hammer is crap for painting your house. You're trying to paint your house with your hammer. The intellect, the idea of knowledge, which, like I said on the retreat in the Garden of Eden, the metaphor of the Garden of Eden was, the original sin was the consumption of knowledge. The consumption of the fruit of the tree of knowledge cast people out of paradise into this earthly realm that we exist now in, this world of sin, in the Christian tradition. But the original sin was the consumption of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The other name for the tree of knowledge was the tree of death, where all of a sudden you go from this life state to this awake state to a sleep state, but you don't know you're asleep. Because we've now consumed knowledge, and whatever an individual believes, so the world appears to them. And we suffer that. However we believe this world to be, we experience. That's why Jesus said, it is done unto you as you believe. Sid said, it's all thought. Same game, just different ways of saying it. All these people from the past weren't trying to create followers. They were trying to say, I've got something to tell you. I've realized something about life. It's really special. You really need to know it, because if you know it, your life's going to change. It's going to become more beautiful, and the world will change, and the world will become more beautiful. It'll become more compassionate. It'll become more loving. It'll become more accepting of all people and all beliefs. It'll become more accepting of all of the rabbit eating the plant. It'll become more accepting of the chickens eating the hydrangeas, whatever that, it wasn't hydrangeas. Ferns. Yeah, they weren't trying to tell anybody, these people from the past were not trying to tell anybody how to live. They were trying to tell everybody what life is. I had no respect for that before any of this. Now I love religious texts, all religious texts. I love reading them and seeing the truth hidden in plain sight. The only thing is we because of the way we believe or what we believe, we go, oh, religion, oh, I don't believe in that religion, I don't believe in that religion, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, I don't believe, or I do believe. It's like we filter our realities through it, and we limit a limitless potential simply by the power of belief. It's like Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or you believe you cannot, you are correct. You see, the only limitation in this earth is a belief. I learned an interesting thing the other day, that the Wright brothers beat the French to flight by 1 week. The Wright brothers beat the French to flight by 1 week. 1 week later, the French were flying after the Wright brothers. it seems like consciousness has this ability to kind of release information when humanity is ready. So, for example, in the Middle Ages, they weren't given the information about Boeing 747s or the internet or GPS or anything like that, or nuclear fusion or anything like that, because they didn't need it. They weren't ready for it. And there's been things that came along throughout time which we were then given access to, knowledge that we're given access to, like splitting the atom, and then we weaponized it. You know, it could be used for all kinds of things, but we weaponized it. And but it seems like in the everyday life, humanity is gifting knowledge depending on its state of consciousness. Like when we're ready for it, it's like these new thoughts start to come into humanity. Like, it's interesting that in different parts of the world, you get all these, like Flight in France. Were the Wright brothers British? I think they were British, weren't they? I'm going to sound really ignorant now. I think they were British. But in different parts of the world, there were these. They're not British. Where are they from, Mum?
America, I think. America, my apologies. So that's it.
So even like separated by the Atlantic Ocean, there was this two things taking place at the same time, this learned flight. Like, to within a week of each other in time on this face of this planet, within a week of each other on totally different continents, within a week of each other, humanity took to the air. You can see that we are all connected. We're connected in knowledge. We're connected in thought. We're connected in thought. Connected in mind. And you see this. We talked about the 100th monkey thing on the retreat, about how monkeys, one of them starts to do it. Once it reaches a critical mass of copying, it just goes out and all the monkeys start doing it. It's like, there you go. It's gone out en masse. Reaches a critical mass. And to me, that's what's happening with awakenings now. We're starting to look, I don't know, I've been around this for 8 years, since my awakening, 2013. And I'm seeing more and more and more and more and more and more people being interested. More and more people waking up and going, wow, life's amazing. Life's phenomenal. I've realized I have this power, I have this gift, and it's a gift that has been poo-pooed by the science community. I realize I have gifts within my consciousness to communicate. I have gifts within my consciousness just to know things. I have gifts within my consciousness to control matter, to control the external world with my own mind. We're meeting more people like that, more people that are close to us as well, friends and family and stuff. And we seem to be, it seems like now consciousness is ready for it to start waking up out of the dark ages and to start coming into the light. Because there's more and more people, all of us now, and if there's people watching this in the recording, that's you too. It's like, you're ready. We're all ready for this now. And I think the only way that it can come is the moment we stop trying to get it. It's the only way. The only way it has the possibility of coming in is the moment we stop trying to get it. The moment's what Buddha, I said to you, Buddha didn't meditate his way to enlightenment, didn't I? And you went, well, he meditated an awful lot, Dave, but it was when he gave up. It's when he gave up meditating. The moment he gave up meditating, he had his enlightenment.
I think it was when he was meditating, he got frustrated and supposedly he gave up within the meditation. This is all from there's a documentary called One Giant Leap, which is a couple of guys who went around the world with 3 musical chords and asked different cultures to create music using those 3 musical chords. And then they blended it all together, and you could see that all of these different styles of music from all different cultures and religions and different places all mixed together beautifully. And then they asked each culture about God and what source was to them. And that's where the story of Buddha came from. So I have no idea if it's actually accurate.
Oh,
so
you lied to me.
That's what it's the guy talking about.
Right,
they had like a little puppet like of Buddha, and he sat there getting like, he's under the Bodhi tree and he's kind of getting eaten by ants and all this stuff, and then he just gets to the point where he gives up, and that's when he reaches enlightenment. But that's where I got the story from, so I wouldn't quote me on it. We need to look into
I'm
this.
going to do it. I'm going to quote you anyway. But it is that, because
Kelly should know this.
Yeah, Kel,
Is that right?
do you want there?
Well, basically, he realised after all of the terrible things he put himself through to supposedly gain enlightenment, that he already had enlightenment when he was watching his father plough a field when he was a child, and he realised that that was the space he dropped into. So again, he already had it. So it's one of the it was already there things.
I love that's even nicer. That's even nicer, Kel.
You know what I was going to say to you? I've just put a message to you two privately on there, because I think you guys mentioned something about when everybody started getting really thinking about the environment and the problems in the environment and greenhouse gases and melting ice caps and all of that there was a massive exponential jump in environmental issues around the time when all humans were thinking about it more. I'm sure it was one of you two told a story about that research.
Me, and it's not backed up by any scientific research. It was how I.
But I think you saw how it's what they expected to happen. It's happened even quicker.
That was right, yeah.
All of the computer generated ideas of how things were going to go and the levels, it's accelerated far greater than they thought it would.
Yeah.
And our kind of hypothesis was that suddenly everyone's attention is on this is terrible, the environment, the greenhouse gases. It was almost our hypothesis is, are we creating a bigger problem by all of our attention being focused on the negative aspect, and what would happen if we all started focusing on it getting better? So it was just us kind of
it's something that made, like, Rusty had a really bad leg, took him to the vets, and she said he's going to need an operation. He's severed his cruciate ligament, and look at him. What time is it? There you go. He's old, and we didn't want to put him through an operation. So we just believed in his leg healing, and we spoke to it, and within the week I'd say it was 2 weeks, and every night we were just, your leg's looking good, Rusty. Yeah. We stopped telling everyone how terrible his leg was, because we've been telling everyone, oh, poor Rusty's leg. We've been going on and on about it, and we just started seeing him as healthy again. Yeah, and within a week or two, his leg was absolutely fine, and he'd hobbled on it for months. Yes, from July through to November, it was we were carrying him on walks, and he was always limping, and if he had been laying down for any length of time, he'd get up and he'd be really uncomfortable. Whereas now it's fine. He's running around like an idiot again. But we put this attention, and we gave our belief to the healing of Rusty, to the perfection of and the correctness of Rusty's leg. Now, our mind is more capable of anything than we know at the moment. We don't know how reality is made. We've had glimpses of it with experiments, the double slit experiment in quantum, where if nobody is observing, electrons and photons act like waves. They're just infinite potential. They're just infinite potential. The moment an observer comes in, consciousness comes in, that infinite potential collapses down into a what's it called? A particle. Yeah, a particle. What appears to be a solid mass, a solid thing, a thing. So it goes from no thing into a thing, simply because of the observation. This is the particles are the building block of the entire universe, the physical universe. The entire physical universe is, according to quantum, is thought into being, is consciously created from consciousness, is collapsed by consciousness. Now, it has to go deeper than that. That's just what science has observed, what science can quantify. And this was over 100 years ago. This is like 110 years ago, I think, this experiment was done.
It's like the Japanese scientist who photographed water.
Yeah.
And then, so they'd either have people pray.
Yoshimoto, is it?
I can't remember his name, but they'd pray over it, or there'd be people like sending it hate and stuff. And then when it was frozen, the one that was prayed over would form symmetrical, sort of beautiful shapes.
Geometric, yeah.
And anything with the anger and the hate was all kind of not, it wasn't uniform.
Yeah.
There's a book on it with all the photographs and the study. And you kind of, I remember I came across all this stuff when I was first exposed to the principles as well, and I kind of tied them together somehow. And then, I don't know, I think through different teachers, I got a sense, oh no, you don't talk about that stuff. And that was just my interpretation. But it's been interesting over the last few years, we've got so interested in looking, what else?
Looking for the proof.
Yeah, what else is possible?
Looking for the proof of the intelligence beyond our intelligence. But in that, when the World Trade Centers were hit in 2001, there are satellites in orbit that measure the Earth's magnetic field. And in 2001, when there were two spikes on September the 11th, 2001, in the Earth's magnetic field that were measurable by satellites. The electromagnetic field around the Earth spiked twice, and it was 10 minutes after each plane struck as the Earth awoke to what was going on. The concentrated focus in a single direction created a spike on the graphs measurable by satellites. That's human consciousness affecting the magnetic field of this planet, affecting the planet. That's human consciousness affecting the planet. And it seems like this is just a theory, but it's something I think is worth thinking about. You know, lately we've concentrated all our attention on the Earth's declining, the Earth's declining, the Earth's declining, the ice caps are melting, and we have gone into this exponential melting quicker as people have woken up to thinking about it. I would be really curious. That's all. What would happen if people stopped thinking that the Earth was going to hell? What would happen if people stopped thinking that the ice caps were melting? Given that this entire universe manifest is a reaction to consciousness, is a response to consciousness, is consciousness. I'd be really curious. It was just, that's why I said that. Because I think over this certainly the next generations of people, they'll be very different to us, and they will be more aware. They are more connected. You just have to look at the youth of today now. They look at the adults and they're going, why the frigging heck would you do that? Why are you running the world like that? Why are you doing this to the planet? They're of a different consciousness. They're more evolved than the adults. They're wiser than the adults. I'd be curious to know what the next few generations of people are actually like. what they've discovered about themselves, because this is only a journey into self, the I am. But everything is us, everything is you, everything is me. We're just starting to wake up and putting together. We've just opened up the box of the jigsaw, and we've just started to lay out the first pieces. That's all we've done. And this is an infinite jigsaw. And we've just opened up the box and started to see that, oh, there's a jigsaw here. It's a bit of a puzzle. Let's start putting the pieces out. And bit by bit, we discover something, and it's a piece going into the jigsaw. And we're only just starting to put the first pieces out. All of us. Even the enlightened people. And I think that knowing that there's nowhere to get to, and that everybody is absolutely perfect. There's no such thing as an imperfect person, because nature doesn't make imperfection. God doesn't make imperfection. It doesn't see any imperfection. It just sees itself. The imperfection is an opinion. It's a perspective. It's a judgment. Look at that lad, Babby. Can he give us a tune? Yo, can he play a tune?
Right now it's on something else. It's
on demo.
Like a synthesizer program, a software.
Me and my sister used to have a keyboard, and we just used to put it on demo and pretend we were playing. That's as far as we ever got, and we did that.
Yeah, my other son does that.
Yeah, just pretend we're playing it. He's cute. Oh. You're good at that, Amanda. So, with that in mind, should we do 5 minutes? Should we put some love into this world for 5 minutes? We'll send some love to 1 second. We'll send some love to, and we'll send some love to anybody who comes to mind, and we'll send some love to humanity, and we'll send some love to this world. So just for 5 minutes.
I know we've run over, so if people need to leave, you're
welcome.
We've just started doing it at the end of community group.
Yeah.
But if people do need to leave, then please, you're welcome to. You're going to time it.
I'll time it. This is where I set it for 5 hours. I've done that before. This is really long. Okay. 5 minutes, and then I'll give you a rude awakening. Morning.
Oh, we just recorded that.
Yeah, I know. That's not so clever, is it?
People watching it, they could join in.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Are we doing it next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes as it gets
We haven't got any weddings, have we? No wedding things.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it gets warmer and lighter in the evenings, we go to every other week, because our community group in person used to get quite small.
It did, yeah.
In the sort of spring summer months, but we'll keep it going every week and see how we go, and if not, we'll go to every other week.
Yeah.
But so yeah, next week will be same time, same link every week.
Cool. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, love.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Loads of love, everybody.
See ya.
Yael, what's your kid called?
Oh. Itchy.
Itchy.
Yitzchak Meyer is his name. But we call him Itchy for short.
Have you got one called Scratchy as well?